Watching Alexandra Ajoy play and chat, it's hard to believe what this 4-year-old has gone through in the past 10 months. Lexxy, as she's fondly referred to, walks towards her smiling as she cuddles her doll. The little girl is recuperating after undergoing a bone marrow transplant in India. This was after she was diagnosed with leukemia, a type of blood cancer. The marks and change of skin color on Lexxy are testimony of the transplant and the 5 courses of chemotherapy she underwent.
She had diarrhea all the time. The skin actually now became dark. The hair was falling off. I'd been saying, God, please, just let's keep the hair this time, because after the chemotherapy it had grown back a bit. But the hair was falling off, the nails were turning black, palms black, teeth black. Vomiting, not really, but a lot of diarrhea. And so from then on, actually, baby doesn't eat. She was not eating, just sleeping more or less all the time, no interest in anything, not talking, just actually lying there.
Lexxy started getting sickly with high fevers in November last year. She was first treated for a flu and then pneumonia.
After 1 week of very strong antibiotics, she still had very high fevers and cough. And so we were all puzzled, but they looked at the blood picture and she had abnormal white blood cell count, abnormal red blood cell count, and her HB was low. And so our hematologist was consulted, and even they didn't think that there was anything major. That was an infection causing an abnormality in the blood picture. But after some time, when she was not getting better, they went ahead and did a bone marrow test, which at the very worst I thought would be some infection that was abnormal, an unusual infection.
Ouch!
But what was thought to be just an infection turned out to be an acute leukemia. At least 90% of Lexxy's bone marrow was full of leukemia cells.
That was very devastating news. We didn't expect it. We had discussed as a family many times, and it was not really part of... we did all other tests that would make her have low immunity. We did HIV tests, and nothing. Everything was negative.
And that's when Lexxy's long journey to fight for her life began. First, they had to search for a marrow donor. The family and doctors were hoping that her 6-year-old brother would be a match, but after tests, that was not the case. So they had to source elsewhere, using the American registry.
I actually had 2 matches, the cord blood, which was in New York Blood Center, and a living donor who was also a black in a different state, I can't remember. But the reason I chose the cord was because of the urgency. If you have a living donor, you have to find them. Yeah, maybe they have already traveled and moved. Maybe they've acquired some disease in the time period since they registered, then you have to do so many tests. And it takes about 3 to 4 months to find these people and actually get the marrow cells.
It's been 10 months of agony for Lexxy and her family. Messages like these could flow on Lexxy's Twitter account, Save Baby Lexxy. One day you would see a message of hope, and the next day she would have a relapse. Her health had become unpredictable.
Actually, by March, it was already 4 months there, and we were more or less at the same position that we were in. We had come to treat and to actually go back with a cured child, but she had leukemia cells in her blood. And beyond that, drug resistance, because once you've given that type of chemotherapy, you can't give it again. Most likely the cancer is already aware of the drugs and will not respond.
Without the transplant, Lexxy had a 10% chance of survival, but with the transplant, it would go up to 60%.
And so it was either to come back and risk her having a relapse and really losing her, or to stay on and consider transplant. Difficult choice.
So they chose to stay on and save baby Lexxy's life, and there came the hardest part, raising the amount required.
At the end of chemotherapy, the first 4 cost us about $50,000. So at the end of that, basically all the money that we had, our own, plus from our friends, was finished. And the child was still sick. and the transplant needed another almost $100,000. And so it was a very difficult period for us.
It has cost the family about 16 million shillings to try and save Lexxy's life. They still have a balance of 1.2 million shillings that has to be paid to the New York Blood Center.
So it's something that, in my opinion, really needs to be heavily subsidized. For us in the developing world, the government has to subsidize, whichever way you look at it. Even if you got donors to put up a transplant unit, for the patients, we'd have to subsidize. And you'd have to think beyond what we do ordinarily with our blood banks and put up a registry, because really you don't have to be paying $38,000 to get a donor from New York. I'm sure we have matches here, it's just we don't have a registry. It's better to have treatment in your own country. Better for the family in terms of support. Just being in a strange country, that is stressful enough than just looking after a child. So emotionally, and financially, it is much better if you can do it in our own country.
Although out of the hospital, Lexxy still has to fight for her life. This will be through swallowing 12 tablets at once, twice a day.
They say maybe after about 6 months after transplant, so sometime in December, they'll be able to remove half of them. And then after another year, they should be able to stop all. Okay, a year to a year and a half. So June to September next year, they should be able to stop all of them.
Her diet is also strict, and right now she's only feeding on boiled potatoes and noodles. All other foods are causing a reaction on her. She also cannot go to school for the next 2 years as she continues to fight for her life.
A lot of the viral infections are in children, so they say avoid school-going children. Even the brother, I'm about to move him to another house. You want to take him? Avoid anybody who is sick. I'm supposed to screen everyone who comes into contact with her to be sure that they don't have any illness. Household contacts need to be vaccinated so they don't transmit anything to her, but you can't use a live vaccine. The vaccines that are given live will still pose a risk to her. She's not supposed to be out in crowds. And actually going outside, it's fine, but she has to wear a mask, but avoid crowds. She's not supposed to be in a dusty house. Even trees are bad because they have pollen, they have bugs on them. I actually advise you to put an air conditioner and close all the windows.